Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 1, Text 15. Kechit Kevalaya Bhaktya Vasudeva Purayana Agam Dunvanti Katsnina Niharam Eva Bhaskara Kechit Kevalaya Bhaktya. Translation. Only a rare person who has adopted complete, unalloyed devotional service to Krishna can uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. He can do this simply by discharging devotional service, just as the sun can immediately dissipate fog by its rays. Purport. Purport is very long. I'm only going to read half of it. Tomorrow I'll read the other half, so the same verse can go on the board. In the previous verse, Shukadeva Goswami gave the example that the dried leaves of creepers beneath a bamboo tree may be completely burnt to ashes by a fire, although the creepers may sprout again because the root is still in the ground. Similarly, because the root of sinful desire is not destroyed in the heart of a person who is cultivating knowledge, but who has no taste for devotional service, there is a possibility that his sinful desires will reappear. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Shriyashitim bhaktim mudasyate vibho krishantiye kevala bhodalabhaye. Speculators who undergo great labor to gain a meticulous understanding of the material world by distinguishing between sinful and pious activities, but who are not situated in devotional service, are prone to material activities. They may fall down and become implicated in fruitive activities. If one becomes attached to devotional service, however, his desires for material enjoyment are automatically vanquished without separate endeavor. Bhakti parasano bhavo viraktir anyatra cha. If one is advanced in Krishna consciousness, material activities, both sinful and pious, automatically become distasteful to him. That is the test of Krishna consciousness. Both pious and impious activities are actually due to ignorance, because a living entity, as an eternal servant of Krishna, has no need to act for his personal sense gratification. Therefore, as soon as one is reclaimed to the platform of devotional service, he relinquishes his attachment for pious and impious activities and is interested only in what will satisfy Krishna. This process of bhakti, devotional service to Krishna, Vasudeva Parayana, relieves one from the reactions of all activities. Since Maharaj Parikshit was a great devotee, the answers of his guru, Shukadeva Goswami, concerning Karmakanda and Jnanakanda could not satisfy him. Therefore, Shukadeva Goswami, knowing very well the heart of his disciple, explained the transcendental bliss of devotional service. The word kechit, which is used in this verse, means a few people, but not all. Not everyone can become Krishna conscious, as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschitadisidaye yatatam api siddhanam api kaschin mam veti tatvataha. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Practically, no one understands Krishna as he is, for Krishna cannot be understood through pious activities or attainment of the most elevated speculative knowledge. Actually, the highest knowledge consists of understanding Krishna. Unintelligent men who do not understand Krishna are grossly puffed up, thinking that they are liberated or have themselves become Krishna or Narayan. This is ignorance. Kechit kevalaya bhakja Vasudeva Parayana Agham Dunvanti Katsnena Niharamiva Bhaskara. Only a rare person who has adopted complete, unalloyed devotional service to Krishna can uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. He can do this simply by discharging devotional service, just as the sun can immediately dissipate fog by its rays. So this verse brings about many subject matters. It is a big verse. It is actually the conclusion of Shukadeva Goswami's presentation to Maharaj Parikshit in regards to the activity one should perform when one is eager to become freed from sinful reactions. Now, the first presentation given by Shukadeva Goswami was Prayaschita. If you perform activities of atonement, Prayaschita means atonement. You do something wrong, so then you do something right and atone for that which you have done wrong. So this is atonement. It means you do a bad, then do a good to nullify it. This kind of activity of doing a bad and doing a good is also material. And Maharaj Parikshit, being intelligent, immediately countered that opinion of Shukadeva Goswami by saying that Manye Kunjara Shochava, I consider that kind of activity of doing a bad and then doing a good to be just like the bathing of an elephant. So, Manye Kunjara Shochava, it is like bathing of an elephant. Elephant goes in the lake, and one of his favorite pastimes is to just with his trunk throw water all over himself. And he's very cool. He likes it very much. And he becomes clean, by the way. But his purpose was to become cool, not to become clean. So then he comes out of the waters, picks up some dirt in his nose, and shoots it all over himself. And since he's all nice and wet, it makes a nice mixture of mud, which dries very nicely on his body. Then the elephant feels very happy. After all, he's an elephant, and elephants are not known for their cleanliness. So, the point is that if a person is engaged in fruitive activities, he will automatically commit sinful activities. Because this is the nature of the material world, it is very entangling. One gets bound up in the material nature, and it is very hard to get oneself extracted from the bondage of material nature. And therefore, one has to suffer under that bondage of material nature. Now, if you just simply perform some activity for freeing oneself from the reaction, that's called atonement. And that is another form of material action. It's just like if there's too much heat in the room, you open the window and let in some cold. Or do you let out some heat? I think you let out some heat. So, one will always find that there's a solution to a material thing temporarily. Not all, but a lot. If you're hungry, you eat. So hunger is the problem, eating is the solution. One nullifies the other. Eating nullifies hunger, hunger nullifies eating. Later on, you're getting more hungry. So that nullifies the effect of the eating. In this way, it's back and forth. Eat, hungry, hungry, eat. And sinful action and so-called purification, in terms of atonement, are like that. Commit a sinful activity, atone. Commit another sinful activity, atone. This is exactly the process which is going on in some religious systems. One commits sinful activities all week, and on Saturday he goes and atones. And then Sunday morning he starts sinning again, and Saturday afternoon he atones. In this way, he's a weekly professional sinner, making it his business to do things in the wrong way, and then atone. So, in this way, he finds his life is going on, and he thinks everything is very good this way, no problem. I can just go on doing anything I want, and just simply go on Saturday and atone, and everything's fine. But that is like the bathing of an elephant. It's not really bathing at all. You only consider a bath as beneficial if afterwards you come out clean. And you must, to some extent, stay clean for some short period of time. Anyway, at least cleaner. But if one comes out of his atonement and immediately starts throwing dirt, then what is the use? It can never solve the problem. And Prabhupada gives the example even more clearly. A criminal will go out and commit crimes. He will steal from somebody. He will do something terrible. Then the police will capture him and put him in jail. Now he is captured and put into jail. So he's supposed to learn something in jail, right? He's supposed to learn, if I do these criminal acts, I go to jail. Now I'm sitting in jail. I don't like it in jail. It's no fun. So therefore, I should want to get out of jail. And I should not want to come back to jail. Obvious, no? But no, not obvious. Many, many, many criminals go back 2, 3, 4 times. Because that's not a way you learn. To simply do something wrong and then get caught for it and punished is not going to teach one very much. Because one who simply has desires to fulfill like this yet doesn't have the knowledge that goes along with such desires will again and again commit various forms of sinful acts and suffer for them again and again. Okay, so Maharaj Parikshit says, I don't accept this as a form of purification. So then, next point. Tapasa brahmacharyena samena chadamena chatyagena satyashuchabhyam yamena nimena va. Yesterday's verse. Now, the process of Jnanamarg. To accept purification through austerities, penances, sacrifices, charities, which begin with, of course, tapasyas of brahmachari, control of the mind, control of the senses, renunciation in the form of charity, tyagena, to give up what one has to others, cleanliness, truthfulness, and properly following all the prescribed procedures and avoiding those things you shouldn't do. So, this is the jnana mark. Acting from the point of knowledge. Higher. That when one understands, he understands that he can't just do whatever he likes and then just make some form of atonement, whatever it may be, and then that's it, finished, and he's no other problem. He knows that he's still responsible for all of that. Now the question is, if just knowledge alone is sufficient to burn up the sinful reactions, well, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that the blazing fire of knowledge can consume all sinful reactions thrown to it. And therefore the example is given like bamboos that have the plant, the leafy part of the plant growing up from the ground like a weed. They dry up when the bamboo is matured, and you can burn them all very quickly. So certainly, the fire is sufficient to burn up the visible portions of the plant. Similarly, the fire of knowledge is sufficient to burn up all the sinful reactions that are thrown to it visibly. However, the root remains. It's like the root of that bamboo plant is still in the ground. And when the rain comes, it will manifest again. Similarly, if you are acting in some knowledge and burning up all of the reactions to sinful activities, but the root is remaining in the heart, and as soon as there's fertile ground for the manifestation of those reactions or activities, once again they will manifest. What is a fertile ground? Well, the most obvious fertile ground is the material body in relationship to the modes of material nature. The material body is a fertile ground for sinful desire to manifest, because there are senses there which want to be satisfied. Therefore, he who has a material body will act in a material way, periodically according to material influences. The modes of nature will change, transform, or present various aspects which attract us in different ways, and therefore we fall down into the condition of material entanglement, bondage. So the jnana is not sufficient. That was the conclusion of yesterday's verse. Because although it may wipe away that which is presently there, it does not get to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is desire within the heart, which must be transformed by the process of devotional service. Therefore, in today's verse, Shukadeva Goswami starts out by saying, Kechit, Kevalaya Bhakya. Kechit. Kechit means somebody, not everybody. Actually, when Prabhupada first translated this, he said just like that. Somebody, not everybody. Yeah. But that's not actually the greatest English, so therefore the editor has changed it to some people. But somebody, not everybody, can actually understand devotional service. Many, many people can understand the karma kanda system of purification. That's easy. It's simple. You just go out, do whatever you please, and come back on the weekend and say, I'm sorry. Very simple process. Doesn't require the slightest sincerity. Maybe a little tiny bit. But, in fact, you just have to say, I'm sorry, and then go on with your singing. Wonderful process. So everybody can do that. Therefore, that process is very popular nowadays. But the next process, the purification that comes from the jnana, is much, much more difficult. Like we said yesterday, tapasa brahmacharjena. Immediately, 99.9% of all humanity just got dropped out of this process. As well as everything else associated with knowledge, charities, austerities, penances, sacrifices, following of authority and rules and regulations. These things are just like mystifying to most people of the world today. Therefore, even that process of completely wiping away all of the sinful activities is unknown. Therefore, most persons end up entangled in the cycle of birth and death, very powerful. Whereas one who is engaged in the jnana marga of purification can accept the program of nullification of all such reactions and actually enter into Brahman, the jnanis, because they have become freed from all forms of reaction, at least to a large extent. If they have been, up to the point of death, they can attain Brahman. That's their prize for proper action. But amongst all of those persons, kechit, somebody, not everybody, the rarest soul. Kechit means a handful. A handful of persons, kevalaya bhaktya, Vasudeva Parayana, will engage themselves, kevalaya means simply, exclusively, in bhakti yoga. And further, Shukadeva Goswami amplifies that statement by saying Vasudeva Parayana. Vasudeva Parayana means no other shelter, no other one to act for than Vasudeva Krishna. And Krishna himself says this in Bhagavad Gita. Vasudeva sarvam iti. Vasudeva is everything. That is knowledge. Jnanavan. One who actually has knowledge knows that Vasudeva Krishna is everything. Samahatma sadurlabha. Such a great soul is very rare. He's a rare person. Kechit, not everybody. Very few may understand. Rare person. Mahatma, Durlabha. Why? Because to understand Krishna is not so easy. Because, after all, the result of that is Agham Dhunvanti Karchnena Niharam Iva Bhaskara. It's like you have a foggy day. And the fog may be very thick. But when the sun comes out, the sun is so powerful and intense that it starts to burn up the fog, which is, after all, just suspended water globules in the air. So they become dried up by the influence of the sun. So, in a similar way that the sun dries up the fog, there is a similar way in which Krishna dries up all the roots of ignorance within the heart based on the sinful desires of the living entity. So the root cause of bondage is our sinful desires which are born of ignorance. And the root means of freeing oneself from that bondage is to dry up those root desires based on ignorance with the devotional service of the Lord. Krishna is like the sun. Maya is like darkness. Where there is the sun, there is no question of darkness. Where there is Krishna, there is no question of Maya. Similarly, where Krishna is there in one's life, the root desires of sinful reactions are just burned up from one's core of one's heart. So the question is, to get to the point of Kevalaya Bhaktya, Vasudeva Parayana, then, for sure, everything will be burned up. But to get to that point, not very easy, as we said before. That's why Krishna says, Shukadeva Goswami says, hate it. It's a rare thing. Only son. Out of 1,000 persons who are at the point of purification on the Jnana Marga, only one may understand Krishna and truth. So rare is it. And it boils down to 1 in a million. 1 in a million. So how many devotees in the world? And how many billions? How many millions? Isn't it? 4,500 million? 1 in a million? 4,500 devotees. Interesting. Well, anyway, that's what Krishna says. So we can understand. Rare. It's rare. It's not frequent that you will find. Often a person learns the art of surrendering to Krishna because there's a lot of obstacles there. First of all, the obstacles come in terms of one's body. The body makes obstacles. The body makes obstacles. How? Because the body says, no, don't surrender to Krishna. Surrender to your senses. Come on, use your brain. You think you've got this body just for using it for austerities and rejecting it completely? You can't reject your body. You have to take care of it nicely. You have to give it all nice things and make it satisfied. Then you'll be happy. Because happiness comes from the senses. When your senses are happy, you are happy. Because your mind is satisfied. That is the propaganda of the body. And from the material point of view, it's absolutely correct. Certainly, it's madness to not give the body everything it wants. Because after all, what is the use of life unless you can just enjoy everything? Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we may die. Because there's nothing after death except the chemicals rotting. Better one just lives his life to the ultimate as much as he can, enjoying everything. And if, by the way, he gets terrifying diseases and his body starts to rot in different ways and the pain gets too great, then just take a lot of opium or something like this and forget about the pain, go into the bliss of a complete stupor and die and let the chemicals return to the chemicals and there's no problem. So this philosophy is the modern philosophy. Of course, nowadays people are realizing when you do whatever you want, you end up with terrible effects in the body, in the mind, and other things. And no matter how many drugs you take, it doesn't work. So then they start drinking. No matter how much alcohol they take, it doesn't work. There's no solution. Even if you think you're just a pile of chemicals, there's no solution. It doesn't work like that. You can just, as you like, just try to take all kinds of things which are going to help you, but they won't ultimately help. Therefore, they ultimately kill themselves. Because they figure, if I'm just a pile of chemicals and after death it's all finished, therefore let me out of here. Too much trouble. So now I'll just kill myself and boom, fall on the ground, and that'll be the end. And I won't care because I won't be there. So the ultimate relief for such fools who are totally motivated by dense darkness is that they kill themselves. That's their ultimate bliss. Yeah. And then as soon as they do that, oh boy, are they sorry. Oh, are they sorry. Because then they realize it's not finished. Oh no, I'm still here. Now what? Oh no. Wailing and lamentation. Horror. All kinds of bad things. There's no solution. In the material world, there's no solution. From that point of view, we are complete negativists. We don't expect there'll be any solution to the material world's problems by material means. We only expect their solution if you surrender to Krishna. Therefore, we are actually sane because we only want to act in a way which actually makes sense according to the reality of this existence. And that is that one must accept certain amounts of austerity, penances, sacrifice, charity, whatever, in order to surrender to Krishna, in order to give up the attachment to this material body, mind, and world, so that one may go back home, back to Godhead, and make a fine success of this human form of life. Because the human form of life is not meant to just enjoy the body and its senses like cats and dogs. The human form of life is meant to actually develop Krishna consciousness, develop one's transcendental consciousness, and go back home, back to Godhead. That is the whole purpose of the human form of life. And even if the senses don't like it temporarily, well, just tough, because there's going to be something else the senses don't like either, isn't it? The senses may not like austerity now. Great. But later on, the senses aren't going to like disease and old age and suffering conditions. It's like sometimes devotees, they think, oh, why devotees have to suffer diseases? Of course, we're not suffering diseases. Basically, devotees just get, a little bit wiped out. Ultimately, all our sicknesses means is we just work too hard and we get tired. And then maybe some other deficiency here and there. We don't have disease in our Krishna consciousness movement. Only rarely when somebody brings it with him from when he was before a devotee. Yeah. Very rarely. But you take the incidence of disease, statistical incidence of disease in the material world, the horrible diseases people have. They get everything cut out of them and bags replaced and this and that, and terrible. Horrible. Devotee problems are much less. We are maybe suffering things that come from previous time. That you cannot stop. You got the body at birth and the body was programmed with various problems. So that you can't avoid. But we are not creating new problems. The materialists are creating intense problems for themselves. Just by smoking cigarettes, eating meat, and other things. They're rotting their bodies away. Drinking alcohol. The whole body is rotting away. Colons and lower intestines and liver and kidneys and brain and lungs, the whole thing just rotting away. So thereafter they have a big business, they sell kidneys and they transplant livers and they put new hearts in, and repair shop, body shop, continuously transplanting this and that one, the other one. Yeah. Too bad they can't transplant brains. They would do that too. So, these problems are not like that. So it is not true that by giving the senses a little bit of austerity now that you're going to suffer. Because the suffering you make now is nothing compared to the suffering you're going to make later if you don't do it. Just from strictly the mode of goodness point of view. What to speak of the fact that even you die in the mode of goodness, you're going to have to take another body, and you're not going to like that either. Because there'll be problems on the mind too. Therefore, accept Krishna consciousness now, without any problem. While one has the ability and possibility to do so, and then later on reap the rewards of purification. Now accept the process, go through the austerity, try hard, and later on reap the very nice rewards of purification. That is actually the Krishna conscious process. A little bit of austerity brings a big result that never is diminished. It always lasts. So let us just go on, little by little, advancing. And then that fog of material existence will lift, and we will become Krishna conscious. All right, Harikesa.